Dan is wrong. If I'm gonna
Click.
fully okay.
And we're live.
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween. One of us is dressed for the occasion, the other is not. But it is Saturday, October 31st, 2020, 5 o'clock p.m. I am sitting here drinking an Australian single malt scotch, which is very odd tasting. Kate is dressed as the Lisa Page puppet. Let's see if she can pull this off. So, the giant Lisa Page puppet. And while she's sitting there, awkwardly dressed as the Lisa Page puppet, I want to talk to you about the greatest Twitter thread of the day, which was brought to you by the London Review of Books bookshop. And it reads as follows. Happy birthday, John Keats. If he had been born as a Greenland shark instead of a human poet, he would still be alive today. And in fact, barely halfway through his natural lifespan, a Greenland shark born on Keats's birthday is the shark equivalent of a 12-and-a-half-year-old Keats. In sheer physical size, too, the Greenland shark dominates. Keats was 1.52 meters and presumably shorter when he was 12 and a half years old. The Greenland shark can reach up to 6.4 meters. Put another way, if Keats was as tall as a shark is long, he would be almost the height of a single-decker bus. Attacks on humans is a more evenly matched category. The only confirmed attack by a Greenland shark on a human occurred in 1859, and according to Richard Monckton Milnes, Keats administered a severe drubbing to a butcher in 1820. So there you have it. On the other side of the ether from me is the Lisa Page puppet, grown up almost to the size of a Greenland shark. And there you have the London Review of Books bookshop really outdoing itself in the absurd comparison between John Keats and the Greenland shark. We're not allowed to have fun anymore, though Kate is making a valiant effort.
You're really giving it a shot today.
You're really working at it today. But in lieu of fun, we have a lot of paper bags, and we can draw images of the Lisa Page puppet on them. So let's bring in the actual Lisa Page puppet to see what the Lisa Page puppet thinks of the overgrown costume Lisa Page puppet.
Man, now I'm gonna have if I have both my arms are above my heart. I hope I don't faint or something. If I do, then just don't light me on fire.
Yeah, no, I think actually you should really stay away from fires
Open
today.
flames.
So let's send a text message to the Lisa Page puppet and see if she has.
I want to do something
maybe the giant Lisa Page puppet should consume the small Lisa Page puppet. It's a very Cookie Monster.
I feel a little like this is Snuffle Up, I guess, version of the Lisa Page puppet. I feel very slow and kind of, yes. Wait, it's Ann K's birthday today. Happy birthday, Ann.
Happy birthday, Ann K. And I still can't get over the fact that Ann K is the legendary Ann Kornhauser. That's still gets me whenever I think of it. All right, well, so, it is Halloween, and that means children all over the country are going to be disappointed, and that's a terrible thing because I hate disappointing children. And so
I also hate disappointing children.
So I want to tell you a fun Halloween story about disappointing children. So this is a shout out to my catty corner across the street neighbors whom I don't actually know. But a number of years ago, in order to, I think because my then small child told me he wanted me to dress up in a gorilla suit to hand out candy to the children. And because I hate disappointing children, I immediately rented a gorilla suit to hand out candy to the children. And the idea would be that children would ring the doorbell, the gorilla would open it, and cheerfully distribute candy. The problem was that the gorilla suit was absolutely terrifying to certain children below a certain age. And and so I realized relatively quickly as the gorilla was administering candy that there were these children who were kind of freaked out by the gorilla. I did not realize how freaked out, however, because there was a little girl, she's now probably a teenager, who was living catty corner across the street from me. And many years later, I was walking down the street, and I got to chatting with this girl's father, who was outside his house, and he asked me where I lived, and I pointed at my house, and he said, "Holy shit, are you the gorilla?" And I said, "Yeah."
Did you literally give this children nightmares
for years?
Life? For years.
He goes into the house. He says, "Hold on there for a second." He goes into his house, and he brings out this now probably 6-8-year-old child or so, and he says, and he introduces her to the gorilla, and she is, and apparently has been having nightmares about the gorilla for years, and so this was a moment of reconciliation, kind of like we are all going to have with Trump voters, where she met the gorilla, and the gorilla without the mask was not terrifying, and it was a beautiful thing. It was like I don't know, like restorative justice between me and this little girl, who the gorilla had, I think was like the stuff of her nightmares. Lisa Page Puppet, why am I having trouble bringing you on audio? All right, I've removed you again, and we're going to try this one more time.
When I was a little kid, I have a similar story, except in that story, I'm the little girl. I had a teacher in kindergarten who they were telling scary stories, and this is part of my agenda, which is scary stories to read in the dark, which is like these great little short stories. I thought it'd be fun. But anyway, we were getting her to tell us a real story, and she told me the story of Freddy Krueger, and I literally wet the bed for, I think, like the next 9 months of my life, because I wouldn't get out of bed in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom because I was afraid of Freddy Krueger. It was terrible. I remember my mom was just so pissed. It was just very angry.
How old were you?
I think I was in kindergarten, so how old is that? 5 or 6, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that age. Okay, I'm getting hot. Is Lisa coming?
Well, Lisa's working on it. Or
Okay.
at least the puppet is. So.
On the other hand, it's a very nice hat.
Well, but it's not a costume because it's the same hat I use all the time.
Yes. I know, I love that hat. My hat's falling off.
You're wearing a hat?
There's a hat stapled into the inside of this so that it would stay on my head.
Oh, so the Lisa Page Puppet has an announcement to make, actually.
Oh. Wait, she does? Hold on.
Yeah, she does. But...
Hold on. Okay.
Crowdcast is not really cooperating. Oh, wait.
That just worked.
There it is. So wait, Lisa, are you there? Are you there, Lisa?
I'm trying to talk, but I can't talk. I bet.
I don't. Yeah, I think
now.
she's like. Lisa. Oh, she's gone now.
Okay.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm gonna take this off because I'm literally dying inside.
All right.
But I get to keep this bottom part on because it's stapled to my clothing.
Excellent. And I'm going to keep on working on bringing in the Lisa Page puppet.
That was
So,
very...
you had, as best as I could tell, 3 items on the agenda.
Oh.
You wanted to talk about election anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
You wanted to read stories.
Yeah.
Wait, is she back?
Did that make it?
Are you audible now, Lisa? No.
Still not.
All right,
Bummer.
I think this isn't working.
We'll try later.
We'll try it later. And then I guess we do have to plan the show, kind of.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we do have to plan the show. Yeah. All of those things. Well, we want to start off with Halloween stuff since we're kind of there already. And
All right.
So I don't know about you, but growing up, Halloween was like a super big holiday in my house. We had as many Halloween decorations as we had like Christmas decorations, and my dad would like go up on the roof and like make big black spiders out of garbage bags and like have them look like they were crawling on the roof and like attacking and it was like there were like very like traditions. Like we watched Charlie Brown and Charlie Brown's Halloween. It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Then we'd have to carve our pumpkins, and you could only like do traditional pumpkins, not only, but like that was prized. And then you always had to make your own costumes. It was like you weren't really allowed to buy costumes, and you could never be the same thing 2 years in a row. It was like not strict rules, but these were like the unspoken rules of like the house was like you had to have something new to go as every year.
We never I think Halloween just wasn't the same kind of holiday that it became. Like, we're 15 years apart in age, and Halloween became a much bigger deal in those 15 years. Okay, are you there this time, Lisa? No. I think she's there. I mean, because she keeps coming on, but she is not audible.
Okay, so I take your point, but I also would say maybe geography, because like upstate Western New York is like, it's like peak autumn, like around Halloween, and it's like haunted hay rides and giant teepees made out of like corn husks, and there's corn mazes, and there's pumpkin patches.
Are they teepees or are they yurts?
Oh no, they're actually huge teepees. They're 3 stories tall, and they were like at a farmer's market. Like they put them up every year, and they line them with fake, and then they fill them with like beautifully carved pumpkins, and you walk through, and it's super creepy, and there's creepy music.
I had a great idea
so
for a pumpkin carving today, but I had it too late to do it, and I was busy with this FOIA release that the FBI gave me this morning. And I've never seen it done, but I wanted to take one big pumpkin and just carve a giant Pac-Man mouth into it, and then have little pumpkins be the dots.
I've never seen that.
I
that would be really good.
I thought of it today. I thought it would be cute, but I guess I'll have to do it next year.
Yeah.
All right. You want to read a scary story?
Yeah. Also, it always snowed. And so you had to make the choice between having a costume that you, like, every time you got to the door, you unzipped your winter coat and showed them what you were and then zipped it back up. Or you had to make the choice of doing a costume that went over your snowsuit. So anyway, some of these are weird. I can't remember why they were scary, but some of them are actually kind of creepy. The voice. Ellen had just fallen asleep when she heard a strange voice. "Ellen," it whispered, "I am coming up the stairs. I am on the first step. Now I am on the second step." Ellen got scared and called her parents, but they didn't hear her, and they didn't come. Then the voice whispered, "Ellen, I'm on the top step. Now I'm in the hall. Now I'm outside your room." Then it whispered, "I'm standing right next to your bed." And then, "I've got you!" Ellen screamed, and the voice stopped. Her father rushed into the room and turned on the light. "Somebody's in here," Ellen said. They looked and looked. Nobody was there. That's like the entire story. Like, and I kind of don't know if that makes it better or not. Like, that's just like, does it make it really lame? Or does it just kind of like the fact that it wasn't going to be good anyways? Like,
I like it because it's basically the experience of every child.
yes, it's just like fear. It's like pure fear, and then like no rhyme or Hi!
There she is, de-puppeted. Hello, Lisa Page.
Look, I'm a real person, but I'm sort of at a Halloween party, so not only have I had to drink, but there's like commotion happening. So
Excellent. So everybody,
Kate,
this is the face behind the puppet.
I cannot.
I'm not bad, right? It's kind of resemblance.
It's amazing, and I cannot believe that you are the Lisa Page puppet for Halloween.
I mean, what else was I going to go as, Lisa?
No one in America is going as Lisa, which is incredibly special. I don't.
I
Even
know.
what to say.
Oh, I love you.
Canceled Halloween.
Crazy.
So that. So
your nostrils are conveniently my eye holes.
How did you make that?
It's a piece of giant brown paper that came as stuffing for, like, you know, the inside of a box of stuff. And then I drew it on, and then I had to make infrastructure to hold it up. And so then I got a piece of cardboard, and then I stapled it onto a hat that I don't like very much, or it's actually my mom's hat, and I hope she doesn't get too angry at me. And then there's this. Then I drew this, and then I stapled this onto my clothes.
Kate.
And then I started this at 4:15, Lisa. It was pretty. I feel like I did a pretty good job.
I sort of feel like your talents may be wasted on the law.
Right? Don't you think that I should be like helping astronauts get back from like abandoned
right? Like,
problematic missions or something?
30? Really? Is this like what you have to offer the world? I mean,
know.
Like, you're on this like magnificent puppet that everyone recognizes as me. So I don't really understand why.
I'm looking forward to you going to Whole Foods and seeing someone with the Lisa Page puppet bag.
I don't know what I'm gonna do when that happens. Like,
you're gonna
I know
take a selfie with it is what you're gonna do.
One day that will happen, and I am so beyond comprehending what it will feel like to see my face on a grocery bag. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have that answer. But look,
it's like one step up from the paper bag.
Sorry?
I get to drink with you guys.
Oh yeah, for
Halloween,
finally.
I'm like really participating. That's like the hilarity
Cheers.
of Halloween. Cheers. I've got a Founder's Stout.
Oh nice.
Yeah.
I have apple cider.
I have this Australian single malt Scotch that I can't decide what I think of.
Oof, that's sort of.
What does it taste like? Kangaroo?
Yeah, it tastes like, it's basically like if you take a Scotch and you put a kangaroo in the bottle and let it marinate for long periods of time.
See, it wasn't too far off.
Kangaroo infused single malt whiskey.
Ben, I haven't read your story yet, but apparently you have like a phenomenal story about how, guess what? The only criticism that the FBI cares about is Trump criticism. Is that true?
It seems to be true. This morning I woke up to get I would say a surprise FOIA production, except it wasn't a surprise. It was a negotiated FOIA production. The FBI had really wanted to put this production off until after the election, and we managed to prevent that and get an agreement to produce it yesterday, which meant it was delivered today. And it showed. So we asked for the genesis of this was that Pete Strzok alleged in his suit that there were disciplinary actions for people who had criticized Trump in private text messages and link messages and emails, including him, but not including you, by the way, because you resigned.
No. I was obviously fired because that's what all of Twitter thinks, was that I was fired in disgrace.
Right. Rather than that you got a job at a law firm and left. But okay, leave that point aside. So there were these people who were disciplined for criticisms of Trump in the context of the Clinton email investigation. And then there were, but that there were no people disciplined for criticisms of other political figures or for praise of Trump. And when I read that in Pete's complaint, I thought, wow, that's a very specific complaint that is allegation that is either true or false, and it should be resolvable by FOIA, because it's a purely factual statement. It's very striking if it's true. And so Scott Anderson and I, represented by Bob Litt at Morrison and Foster, FOIA'd all disciplinary records of people who were disciplined for private political criticisms or praise of Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, or Mitt Romney, which is to say the last
election, right? Yeah.
The last group of,
yeah.
Well, right. So, and the answer is there are 5 people who were disciplined for criticisms of Donald Trump, no people who have been disciplined for praise of Donald Trump, though we know that certain people, the IG actually flagged, that there was a lot of fist pumping in private communications on FBI tech about when Trump won, and there's no, believe it or not, no one's ever been disciplined at the FBI for criticizing Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, which actually surprises me because I would think that in an organization of 35,000 people, somebody probably sent a racist text message about the first black president at some point. So I thought it was a pretty striking result. It actually does validate the claim in Pete's complaint, and we posted it on Lawfare this afternoon around 3:30 or so.
Huh. I can't wait to go and look at it. I just yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I imagine you're shocked.
That's not the outcome I expected. I just sort of felt like we would have seen dozens of Hillary Clinton complaints. So I'm really surprised.
So I have a question for you about it.
Okay.
How routine was it in the Bureau to see something like somebody saying, so the example that is in the IG report is that somebody says, one of the supervisory agents says about Hillary Clinton, hey, if there's a special counsel to investigate the Clinton Foundation, sign me up, and is asked by the IG to explain this and says, well, I thought it would be really exciting to work on putting away a criminal, right? So my question is, how routine, no one's been disciplined for that sort of thing. How routine do you think that kind of communication is?
I don't really want to speculate, to be honest with you. I can say that I am aware of 2 incidents in which senior FBI executives essentially said to Pete, you got to get her. which seems even worse, frankly, than like, I don't like this woman, or I would like to be part of her investigation, which I told both the IG and Congress, for whatever that's worth. I imagine that if you were to search Hillary Clinton through the text messages and link sort of internal IM messages at the FBI, you would find an extraordinary amount of hits. Now, I think the IG would say, yeah, but they weren't investigating this individual. Which, look, I've repeatedly taken responsibility for, I think, the failure of judgment in our private communications. But that said, they're just communications. There is nothing, given that every single thing I have ever written has now been FOIA'd by Judicial Watch and is being released on a regular monthly basis. I did not think that Donald Trump was suitable or appropriate to be president.
No shit.
Yeah, as it turns out. And I was candid about that in text messages that I.
Does that mean you know who you're voting for, Lisa?
I'll never say. You know, I still do not think that my text messages were inappropriate. I think that they were not the right judgment call, but I am permitted to retain my personal opinions about the fitness of an individual running for Congress. And FBI internal policy and the Hatch Act make abundantly clear that both of those things are appropriate.
So here's my question. If you were asked to write the rule, and one of the things as I've studied this issue over the last couple years is that it really isn't obvious either what the rule is or what the rule should be. One possibility is to say, hey, you shouldn't be using, government computer equipment to send personal political opinions to anybody. But I cannot actually see a rule that says that.
The rule doesn't say that. Actually, there is a rule. It's actually rather clear. And it is the FBI regulation, which expands upon the Hatch Act. And it makes quite clear that FBI employees are allowed to convey their opinions both privately and publicly with respect to candidates and issues. So it's actually not an ambiguous rule. The IG cites to it, but doesn't pay it much mind. And they only cite to it because we insisted on their citing on it. But at the end of the day, there is absolutely no rule violation that one can point to. Now, prosecutors, of which I count myself, obviously, will say, yes, but it's obviously Giglio, right? It's obviously material that could be used to impeach you, in a trial. But there is 0.0% chance that Lisa Page is ever testifying in a criminal trial against Hillary Clinton or literally anybody else. I was counsel to the deputy director. I am not a part of the prosecution team. There have been abundant cases which interpret what a prosecution team is, and it ain't me, right? If you're going to suggest that every FBI executive, and every U.S. attorney executive, so we're talking about the U.S. attorney and the first assistant, anybody who gets briefed on a case is not a part of the prosecution team. So Giglio only applies to individuals who are actually going to testify in court. So it doesn't really matter what my opinion is, or what Pete's opinion is, or what anybody's opinion is if they are not going to be a witness against the individual. But we go a step further in our cases. We have been exhaustively investigated. There is literally no stone to unturn with respect to what we did, our opinions, our emails, our actions. Trust me, they have been investigated. So at the end of the day, it's actually not an ambiguous question about what we were allowed to do, what we weren't allowed to do. We were wholly within the rules, which is why the IG never actually cites a violations of rule, and they kind of go with this ambiguous, there could have been bias and we're not sure, but mostly there wasn't bias. We didn't see any actions, but they still shouldn't have done this kind of sentiment. So, I don't know. You tell me. We're within the rules.
So here's my I mean, you have litigation on Privacy Act grounds. Pete has litigation on wrongful termination and First Amendment grounds, which ultimately has to claim that he was within his rights to do that in order to prevail. You guys, I don't want to ask you to comment about pending litigation, either yours or his, but are you, both your lawyer, Amy Jeffress, and his lawyer, Eitan Gulman, are quoted in my piece today saying, and by the way, we have litigation on exactly this point. I take it that's a way of foot stomping in litigation terms exactly the point that you just made, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, even if you look at the basis by which, Pete was terminated in the letter that Dave Bowditch sends, it's circular. It's disrepute upon the Bureau. You brought, this negative attention, except the negative attention would not have been brought but for the, specious 10 p.m. release by the Justice Department of our text messages that were specifically selected to be inflammatory in the first place, right? If you could imagine a world in which in which nobody knew who Lisa Page or Pete Strzok was until June 2018, when the actual IG report was issued, and issued with the context of, okay, there were these political seeming text messages, but we've now interviewed these individuals, interviewed everybody who worked with these individuals, and reviewed virtually everything they've ever written, and have concluded that they're, notwithstanding their personal opinions, there was no bias with respect to Hillary Clinton. Because remember, what we were being investigated for was bias against Trump, and so therefore we must have been pro-Clinton. Again, notwithstanding the IP's conclusions, in which they found that he and I were frequently the most aggressive, wanted to take the most aggressive steps against.
I thought that everyone found out about you from the Lisa Page puppet, but are you saying it was the other way around, Lisa?
You would think that, as prominent as the puppet is, that surely...
I know. Which came first, Lisa Page puppet or the Lisa Page puppet egg? That's really the question.
Right. Yeah, so here's my question. Understanding that if there were trick-or-treating this year, young women everywhere would be going as Lisa Page. If you were trick-or-treating, which Justice Department official would you be going as?
Or, look at her sweater. Doesn't it reminisce of RBG? Oh, it does when you're closer up. It looks like you've got the collar
on. I'm on my phone. I wasn't planning to do any of this. I'm at a friend's house, drinking a beer. So, I mean.
So, are you? Which would your costume be? Would you go as Dave Bowditch, as Rod Rosenstein?
Who's the scariest?
You're not tall enough to do a Jim Comey.
No, dear. So the truth of the matter is that I hate Halloween. I know this is a terrible thing to say, but I am. Oh, Kate's not going to be my friend anymore. Look at
Halloween.
I'm not creative at all, even in a tiny, tiny way. And so I loathe Halloween because there's an opportunity for the creative people in the world to shine and be notable, and for the lamos like me to cower in a corner. So,
well, that's okay, because every time there's an FBI report released, it's an excuse for me to be reminded that I don't have any skills at analyzing government rules or regulations, and that I'm only good at making paper puppets.
Section 230.
That's true. It is true. We have Section 230 in common.
But let's shift to Kate's. Kate had an agenda for this episode, which was we were going to talk about election anxiety.
Oh, God.
So I suggest, Lisa, you just hang around for that part.
I don't know anything about that. So cool and completely chill, for sure.
So what was it that you wanted to talk about it, Kate?
I don't know, like, that I was having it. That, like, I think that it, like, there's this very profound thing in which I have not been checking polls. I am not like you in the sense, like, I don't check the polls or obsess over, like, kind of every little breakout about the news, about these things. I didn't do it with the primaries either. I always kind of just, for this stuff, I just, like, I don't cover it anymore, so I just kind of, like, wait for the results to happen and I vote. But because I recognize that I have, a limited amount of things that I can do in my power to make the outcome how I want it to be, and so I kind of let it go. But this year, I think, with so much reason, I just seem to, like, everything seems to just be, like, the whole world seems to have been holding its breath for 4 years, and I have felt that literally since 4 years ago, last election, and the morning after. And this is I don't know, kind of just not, like, I don't know what to do, but I don't know.
So, Lisa, how are you experiencing election anxiety? And how is it distinct from, like, the rest of the last few years?
I'm not sure that I would consider it distinct. I mean, look, sorry, there's, like, actually, as I said, I'm at a party. I just need it to be over. And I don't actually think it's going to end, for me, to be clear, because the president, hopefully former president, still hates me. There's still some, like, substantial portion of the population that thinks I am an actual criminal who has gotten away with criming, as Molly tends to say. And so, like, I don't think much is gonna change for me. I just really want the soul of our country on stronger grounds.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like, it's going to be an uphill battle, but you're just, like, waiting to hit the turning point. Like, I'm just, like, right. I know that it's just going to be more work ahead, but I just, like, it would be nice to know that, like, you're not just digging, that you're you're digging yourself, that you're coming back out, I don't know, of the hole.
Yeah, there's just, it's much less about me, although the truth of the matter is, like, I don't know what 4 more years would ultimately look like. I don't know. I keep saying, like, I don't know how I'll do that, but I'll do that the same as I did the last 3 years, which is just to, like, get up every day and take another step forward and wish it was all over. But there's nothing more that I can do. So yeah. I just hope that our country gets its feet under themselves, and we've got, like, 2 days to go, which is just beyond comprehension to me.
Yeah. Ben, are you having anxiety?
I know really. I am, because I'm getting up extremely early every morning.
See? Little things like that.
So I know I am, but I on a minute-to-minute basis, I don't actually feel very anxious. But I am... But I know that I am experiencing anxiety because my behavior is actually different. And how much of it is election anxiety and how much of it is COVID anxiety and how much of it is, political violence anxiety. I don't really know, I am definitely... I don't feel like I'm particularly on edge. On the other hand, I'm waking up at 4 a.m. So
that's exactly what I'm talking about, though.
Kind of evidence.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I'm like my fingers are terrible because I've been picking at them. Like, I just, like, have been, I don't know. There's just, like, little things that tell me, like, not being able to sleep through the night. Like, I'm like 3 hours every night waking up and just can't fall back asleep. That hasn't happened since the beginning of the pandemic. So yeah, it's just really intense. It looks like you have to go, Lisa, so we won't keep you because you're at a party and stuff, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so
I'm glad you got to see my costume.
Kate came as the Lisa Page puppet, and the Lisa Page puppet came as Lisa Page.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
It's kind of like, Now, if only Lisa Page would come as me, it would be a giant circular thing.
I know.
All right.
Just beyond comprehension. I love
Enjoy the party, Lisa, and give our apologies to your hosts, whoever they may be.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Which leaves us 20 minutes. That was a surprising turn for In Lieu of Fun. We did not know Lisa was coming on the show today, much less that she was outing herself or coming out from behind the mask, the puppet mask. What do you want to do? Do you want to plan the show? Do you want to? All right.
I think we've got, I mean, like.
So tomorrow's set, because we've got the last, instead of mystery guests, we've got the last of our Making Fun of the Election series with Scott Shapiro.
Great.
And the focus group maven, Sarah Longwell. What are we doing on Monday?
Great question. Hold on, I'm pulling up our calendar. So, I thought we were going to extend the 50-50 into the night before the election, but maybe we should just make it something else. What do you want to do for the day before the actual election? It's such a hefty spot.
I think we could, so Monday, I think we should just have all. I think we noted on the calendar that we were going to invite back all guests.
Oh, I'm really glad we made that notation, and I don't remember. But we did make that decision. I had forgotten that we made that. Okay, yeah. We just
have a warning for you about Monday, though, which is that I have a podcast recording, speaking of the election, with the awesome folks from the Stanford MIT Healthy Elections Project. People, Nate Pursley and Charles Stewart, and the incredible group of students that they've had writing stuff
they have gotten great
for lawfare.
Students.
No, they have done incredible work.
Yeah. And
so that's going to run from 4 to 5. So I will show up, 2 minutes before we go live that day. Okay. So just and then there's the election day itself, which I think we decided we were going to do just. Us and, people who show up and audience discussion between 5 and 6 and then reconvene at midnight. Is that what we decided we were doing?
Reconvene at midnight. I mean, so let's say, for example, here's the thing. What if for some reason I know that this is the opposite of what everyone's been saying, but what if for some reason that, we know kind of definitively before midnight?
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we reconvene 1 hour? Why don't we? Why don't we just do? No, because we're not going to know. We're not going to know definitively anything at 10.
Well, when's Texas? And it's kind of when's that's at 11, right?
Yeah, but it's going to take a while for.
You're right. We're not going to know by midnight.
Let's just say. I mean, midnight.
Let's just say midnight. That's fine.
All right. Let's.
It's easy.
And then I don't think we should plan anything after that because we don't know whether we're going to be in.
Morning or
there's an election contest going on, or we're talking about a transition, or we're going to be in a totally different environment. So I don't think it's worth planning anything for Wednesday or later at this stage.
Yeah. And that makes sense to me. But actually let's just hold off entirely. Let's just talk a little bit more about Monday. If you're not able to show up until 5, why don't we tell all guests to join us after 5:10? And so then we can...
I want the show to start on time.
Oh no, we can start it on time, but they can come at 5:10 or any point thereafter, and we'll have the monologue, and you won't have the pressure of having to Zoom guests in while you're starting the show. And
okay.
And then they can show up and we can rapture them in, and we can have it'll just be a slow burn type of thing, and we'll get a few people. We'll reach out to a few people to make sure people come. But yeah. That sounds good.
That's great, and we can send a and there's some I think it's not on all past guests. It's less less the cultural folks, and more the politics and law. And,
I think that's a good
policy
point.
folks. But let's maybe we can send out it's probably 150 people at this point.
I mean, Michael Fromberger would know. He's been like literally keeping
all
of our guests, our archivist,
the chronicler and archivist. All right, I think we're in business.
Okay,
should we take a few
some questions? Yeah.
All right,
Do you think it's safe for me to light? I don't think it is safe for me to light my pipe in this thing. Never mind.
No, I think fire and paper is. So there's an important question, Halloween question from Daniel here that I'm just going to read. Can we all agree that candy corn is awful? So you're a pro Halloween person.
I fucking hate candy corn. Candy corn is like somebody decided to like make use of old candle wax and like leftover like sugar from like 8 years ago and like poured them together and made them into traffic cones. I hate them.
Okay, I am kind of agnostic on candy corn. Fubar asks,
can we have a moment about candy, though? Halloween candy?
Yeah.
I have many opinions.
And I'm going to try to bring Fubar in. Fubar has never allowed me to bring him or her in, so I am going to try, but I think I'm going to fail.
Okay. We should have a poll on candy, though, but pro or con candy corn, because it's controversial. It's kind of like controversial. Same with Cadbury eggs are controversial.
Cadbury eggs are awesome. You approve
John makes fun of me.
I like
go to Province.
Corn, actually.
Wait, you just said you were agnostic, Ben.
Yeah, I'm kind of agnostic, but I'll eat it if it's in front of me.
Ugh. I have to be like very low on sugar to eat candy corn. So I had there's
a poll on candy corn up there.
I know everyone thinks of Provincetown as this gay mecca, but it's also has all of these incredible old taffy and like penny candy shops, and you can go and get all of these old time candies and like all of these old types of things that they still stock in their novelty. And I think I've told you before, I don't like sweet stuff. Like I'm not a sweets person. I don't eat dessert really, and I like love novelty candy. I like genuinely like eating like wax lips. I wear them around for a while and then I eat them. I like Fun Dip. I really love Pop Rocks.
I like Pop Rocks. Yeah.
I love the Ring.
Hey, Fubar exists.
Hi, Fubar.
Incorporeal presence.
Hi, Frank.
So now we know that Fubar exists and has an awesome background. Looks like, you're on the spaceship that the alien's going to attack you on.
It is the TARDIS from Doctor Who.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Yeah. It's good to meet you. So what is your question? You have an awesome question.
So, Ben, with the clock moving back again, I am completely supporting 100% your motion to end all time zones. Will you be spearheading a constitutional amendment?
But now I know why
Look,
this
first of all,
it
does not require a constitutional amendment. It requires an act of Congress. I think
the Constitution is agnostic on time zones.
The Constitution has nothing to say on this.
I know.
What it really requires is an international norm, an international standard, which we're pretty good at setting those up. When you dial a phone number in a foreign country, it miraculously connects because we have agreements, international telecommunications agreements that set standards, and similarly, a whole bunch of countries are all setting their own time zones. It's really dumb. And if we just got together, and I don't if people think it's imperialist for Greenwich Mean Time to be the time, fine. Draw it through the international date line. That's, standard time. I don't care. Make it right through the middle of Tehran for all I care. It's not. Just have a standard time. It doesn't matter what it is. We all use it, and everything would be easier. And this is not a serious subject for debate. So but here's the problem: is that nobody believes me about this, and so the moment the moment people just agree, it's a political easy lift. So that's my my answer to your question. Frank, welcome to the show.
So I lose audio when I'm on screen, so I think you've asked me to ask my question. And basically my question is, how many people in the audience have you known prior to beginning in Lieu of Fun? How many new people have you met? How many people do you know personally who's here? And just basically that, your relationship to the audience.
That's a good
Great question. I think the answer may be a bit different for Kate and me, but Kate, why don't you answer? Because I didn't know you and Mike Fromberger knew each other for a long time. So like we have different. I think we have different answers to this question, and so go ahead and you give your answer, and then I'll give mine.
I mean, I knew basically nobody that was like in the regular. I didn't know anyone in the regular audience except Mike. And Mike came, I think, because he had just kind of like, he was kind of looking for a smart conversation on things. And so he started coming, and then he really liked it. And then he became friends with a lot of the people in the audience and everything else. But that's the only person that I know from, like, before times. What about you? Did you know a lot of people? Like, did you know a lot of, like, the regulars from Rational Security or anything?
So I think a bunch of RATSEC people, so I don't know people from RATSEC because it's a one-way communications mechanism, except that we get feedback on Twitter. There are some people like John Bordeaux who I have met in person from before. And there are people like Alejandro Manovich who long after In Lieu of Fun started, who are old friends, started showing up. Gowan DeLeo, who I went to college with, but this happened long after In Lieu of Fun started. Most people that the people who I know now from the audience are mostly people I met through In Lieu of Fun, not the other way around. There are a few exceptions to that. So, for example, Stephen Friedman, who just was in the chat, we don't know each other personally, but we're both very close to Jonathan Rausch. And there are people who I'm sort of one nodule away from, more than handshake away from, one bear hug away from, that sort of thing. But I think that's more. And then there's people like Ann Kay, who we actually have, we have an early professional, in my case, very formative experience that was at the same place. We weren't there at the same time, but I was very, very aware of her, and she apparently was rather aware of me as well. And so we have this thing in common. But I wouldn't have known Anne if I'd run into her on the street, or if I'd sort of shared a show audience with her, say, and her been a presence on it for several months. I didn't figure out who she was. So there's a fair bit of that, but mostly I've gotten to know people through the show, not the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Which question should we take next, Kate?
I am gonna look. Hold on. I think that there was. Let's see. Favorite October, November dessert, treat, or libation. I guess we kind of covered that with the candy thing. Although, where are you?
Oh, maybe we should bring in Tony Ragusea, who I have never seen before on the show, who says he is a clinical psychologist and can talk about election anxiety, or she.
Oh, yeah.
Should we bring?
Totally.
Let's bring in Tony. That's a great. See, this is something that does not happen on Rational Security, where we say, hey, if only we had somebody who could talk about election-related anxiety, and somebody goes, oh, over here, I can do that. So that
it's so cool. I love it. And then, I also just kind of love that we can, decide to talk about election anxiety. And that we can do, we can have a serious conversation. Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
Tony.
everybody.
So first
Hi.
question, how do you pronounce your awesome last name?
Well, thanks for calling it awesome.
It's awesome.
Other people would disagree, but I pronounce it Ragusia.
And is it and where is it from?
So
Is it-
it's Italian, and it originally comes from.
But like Northern Italian, yeah?
Well, it's actually Southern Italian, but the name itself is interesting. It comes from the kingdom of Ragusa, which is what is now currently Dubrovnik. And the sailors that would travel back and forth from Italy to Dubrovnik were called the Raguseians. Because it was then Ragusa, the kingdom of Ragusa. So those Italians were Raguseians, and so I'm a Ragusean. I guess.
So it's an Italianization of a Slavic word,
I guess so.
Yeah.
which is
I hadn't
why
thought of it that way before.
which
That's
is
probably
why
right.
it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's a super cool name.
So what
So,
are your
tell us about
interesting
election-
insights? Yeah.
Tell us about election anxiety.
Well, what do you want to know? It's normal.
Is everyone experiencing it?
Sure, yeah. I mean, everyone's experiencing it, including Republicans too, right? And so there's nothing bizarre about it. And of course, when we feel like we're not in control, we tend to feel more anxiety, right? And right now, we're all feeling out of control because we've voted, we've done what we can do, or we're going to vote on election day, and there's not much more else we can do. And so we're left feeling kind of still out of control. So what do you do about that? I think that there are a couple of tips that I can give people real quick. One is to try to take good care of yourselves over the next few days. If you're finding yourself getting really stressed out so that it's affecting your sleep or your appetite, stuff like that, try to take care of your basic needs. Try to eat healthy food. Try not to binge on alcohol and junk food. Try to get decent sleep. I know it's too late for some of you. I know. I'm sorry.
Well,
there's always next year.
let's make a plan to boil the ocean too while we're at it, Tony.
And another thing to keep in mind is that you want to kind of try to sort of limit the amount of time you spend on this. There is other things going on in the world besides this election, and the outcome of
FOIA
this
production,
election.
for example.
Exactly, yes. And there's lots of other things that are important to think about at a time like this. And so if you just shut off media, you will then refocus on some of those things, like in your immediate environment and family and things like that are probably more important in some ways. And finally,
Okay, I'm not going to say this is like kind of like well, has nothing to do with my personal situation, but like for people who are stuck in situations in which the focusing on family and relationships is actually not the most comforting thing, because those are not awesome, and those also cause anxiety, as I think many people are kind of like having go on. And like, how do you, I think that maybe the complete obsession over the election for some people is an escape from those relationships, right?
certainly could be. And that's why it's always hard for me to give like generalized advice about things, because everyone's situation is different. But the last thing I'd say is try to remember that no matter what happens, if you don't get the outcome you're looking for next week, we will survive it, okay? Nothing stays the same forever. And you can see that even over the last 4 years, the Trump administration has made a lot of things possible and created a lot of motivation to create change that wasn't existing before. And it's one of the positive things about the Trump administration. It's motivated people to do things constructively that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise, to get more involved, more engaged, push for more change. There are always silver linings, and it will be okay.
Yeah.
And so where are you, and what sort of clinical psychologist are you?
So I'm in Pennsylvania, and I work for a community hospital, and I'm a board certified clinical psychologist. I've been practicing for about 15 years or so, and I do psychological assessment, neuropsychological assessment, and psychotherapy. with just about everybody.
Have you been busier or about the same amount of busy over the last?
Yeah, it's
9
all
months?
about, it's about the same amount of busy. I mean, everyone's always stopping me and going, "Oh, you must be really busy right now. Everyone's really upset and stressed out right now." And it's like, well, yeah, but they were before. And sometimes what I'll ask is, well, how are you dealing with this right now? Are you panicked about COVID or the anxiety or of the election or whatever? And most people are like you and me, like we're still functioning day to day and we're still doing our regular things, and we're able to worry about more than one thing at a time. And we can get stressed out about COVID, and we can also be focused on work and relationship stress and all this other stuff. So it just winds up getting incorporated into the problems that were already existing, and that sometimes occupy people's attention more so. So I really haven't noticed that much of a difference. I'm always busy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to meet you. And thanks for putting your hand up. This is great advice on which to end. And we are at the end of the show. This show was rather different from what we were expecting, but that's what happens with the Just Us stuff.
I like the Just Us randomness. It's fun.
They're kind of fun.
Yeah.
So we will be back tomorrow with the culmination of 2 threads of In Lieu of Fun, the discussion of Sarah Longwell's focus groups, and the
finding
last
out how Scott Shapiro is going to vote.
The last undecided voter in America. That will be 22 hours and 59 minutes from now. And until then, Kate,
we don't have fun anymore, but we can wrap ourselves in sheets of paper bag and become, whoever we want to be.
Or at least a puppet of that person.
Yes.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.